What if BRICS becomes the new world superpower? Imagine waking up in a world where the United States is no longer the dominant global leader, the dollar is no longer the most powerful currency, and the balance of power has shifted entirely towards an alliance led by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, along with their new members like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. This is not a distant fantasy. The seeds of this transformation are already being planted today in the year 2025 as BRICS expands, challenges Western institutions and talks openly about creating a new global currency that could rival the US dollar. To understand how this alternate future could unfold, we need to break down the factors that could lead to BRICS becoming the dominant superpower, how the world would look under its leadership, and what the consequences, both positive and negative, might be for ordinary people everywhere. It begins with the economic shift. For decades, the world economy has been centered around the West, particularly the United States, the European Union, and Japan. But over the last 2 decades, the rise of China, the economic resilience of India, and the resource wealth of Russia, Brazil, and South Africa have begun to tip the balance. In our alternate scenario, the tipping point comes in the late 2020s when BRICS nations officially launch a unified trading currency backed by a basket of commodities: oil from Saudi Arabia and Russia, gold from South Africa, agricultural exports from Brazil, and manufacturing dominance from China and India. This currency, designed specifically to bypass the US dollar, becomes attractive to developing nations frustrated by the dollar's volatility and the influence of American sanctions. Within 5 years, 60% of global oil trade and nearly half of international commodity exchanges are conducted in this new BRICS currency. The geopolitical consequences of this shift are massive. The United States finds its ability to impose economic sanctions greatly reduced as countries can now trade without relying on dollar-based systems like SWIFT. African nations, long dependent on Western loans, turn towards BRICS-led development banks that offer lower interest rates and fewer political conditions. Latin American countries, frustrated by decades of economic dependence on the US, begin aligning their policies with BRICS trade standards. The European Union faces a dilemma: maintain its loyalty to NATO and the US, or deepen economic ties with BRICS to access cheaper energy and commodities. Military power also transforms in this new world order. In our alternate reality, BRICS establishes a joint security framework in the early 2030s. This alliance combines Russia's advanced missile systems, China's rapidly expanding navy, and India's growing space and cyber capabilities. By pooling military technology and sharing intelligence, BRICS deters Western military intervention in member states and begins deploying peacekeeping forces in African and Asian conflicts, often in direct competition with UN missions traditionally influenced by Western powers. But the most dramatic change happens in the cultural sphere. For over a century, Hollywood, Western fashion, and English-language media have dominated global culture. In a BRICS-led world, we witness the rise of Chinese cinema, rivaling Hollywood in box office influence, Indian streaming platforms becoming global entertainment giants, and African music gaining unprecedented international attention. Universities in Beijing, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo replace Harvard and Oxford as the most sought-after institutions. English remains widely spoken, but Mandarin, Hindi, Portuguese, and Arabic gain significant importance in international diplomacy and business. The shift also affects technology and science. China and India lead in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and space exploration, while Brazil and South Africa push advancements in renewable energy and biotechnology. The BRICS nations jointly launch a global satellite network to rival GPS, making them independent from American-controlled systems. They invest heavily in undersea internet cables connecting Asia, Africa, and South America, reducing reliance on Western digital infrastructure. Of course, this BRICS superpower scenario is not without challenges. Internal rivalries such as India's border tensions with China, Russia's unpredictable foreign policy, and Brazil's political instability could threaten the alliance's unity. Critics argue that replacing US dominance with BRICS dominance might simply swap one set of problems for another: censorship concerns in China, corruption in some member states, and human rights issues in others. Moreover, the West is unlikely to surrender its influence without resistance. In this alternate timeline, we see a new kind of Cold War emerge, not between capitalism and communism, but between two competing global systems: the Western-led liberal order, and the BRICS-led multipolar order. For ordinary people, life under BRICS dominance could look very different depending on where they live. In Africa and parts of Asia, greater BRICS investment could mean more infrastructure, better trade deals, and less dependence on Western aid. In the West, however, people might face higher energy costs, fewer global trade privileges, and a cultural adjustment to living in a world where their countries no longer dictate the rules. International travel might involve learning new languages and navigating new visa systems. Digital platforms might vary by region, with BRICS nations promoting their own apps, search engines, and social media networks instead of relying on Google, Facebook, or YouTube. Ultimately, the rise of BRICS as the new world superpower represents a massive shift in how humanity organizes its political, economic, and cultural life. It challenges the long-standing assumption that Western dominance is permanent and forces the world to consider what a truly multipolar order might look like. Whether this leads to greater global cooperation or deeper geopolitical divides is uncertain. But one thing is clear. In this alternate future, the maps of power, trade, and influence are redrawn, and the story of the 21st century is no longer written in Washington, London, or Brussels, but in Beijing, New Delhi, Moscow, Brasilia, and Pretoria.